Alright, this video is going to focus on sprites, sprite strings, and the screen log. So basically the sprite is like a wrapper so that it's easier to put 2D images on the screen. When you create a sprite, you give it the image key or the image key and a rect, and that will give you, that will create the sprite at the position that you want if you give it the rect. So basically, in the image manager and your load resources, you have to make sure to load the images that you want. And yeah, it'll set everything up for you. Basically, there's just a ton of different nice functions that can let you do different things with the sprite, so you don't have to think about any of it, and it'll do it for you. For rendering, basically the camera manager in the scene class. What am I doing? I'm looking for render. The camera manager in the scenes class creates a 2D camera, and it just has, you know, a single one, so you can always just reference that one, and you just have to call render, and the sprite in and of itself, inside itself, will reference that 2D camera and render it to the orthographic camera. So that is all good. Earlier I talked about how draw in the draw process, the drawable manager processing loop, you do all of the draws first and then draw 2Ds. So in a game object, in this HUD manager test I have, you can implement draw 2D, where you should do all of your 2D drawing. Yeah, I have a ton of tests for this particular thing. So I just have the Stitch sprite, and he starts down here with his center in the middle, rotating around. If I press, let me pull up what so if I press the P key, then his center changes to up here, so he rotates like that. I can force the angle to be 0, so he can keep snapping back to 0. If I press left bracket, he goes into the middle, scales up, and is still rotating around the middle. If I press, actually the scaling, that doesn't look completely right, does it? Well, it kind of works. It's kind of rotating. If I press 0, oh no, what do I press? Right bracket. Then he goes back to the center, rotating around. So yeah, those are just some of the things displayed, or some of the functions of the sprite displayed. And just to be clear, in the test, this is where I create him with the new Gemini sprite with the image key and the rectangle for his initial starting position. Position and size. Okay, in terms of sprite strings, let me go up here. Okay, let me start with sprite font. So sprite font is basically you take an image, like one singular image, and parse it into a ton of different glyphs, and each glyph is a Gemini sprite, and each one of the glyphs is associated with a particular character. So this is the file we were given, and it just has a font map where it maps all of the different character keys to the different sprites, the glyphs, and go ahead and set the center to be the top left. And so then when you request from the sprite prompt to get a glyph, it can just give you the image for just that particular rectangle of the texture, and you can reuse them as much as you want. So for a sprite string is basically just a list of glyphs. When you create a new one, you can set the position and the string that you want, and the font. So you have the pointer to the font. You basically loop through the string that you want to set it as and get all the glyphs for all the different characters, push it into that list, and then when you render, you just loop through all of the characters in that list, render them at the right position. So makes things a little more efficient. In my HUD manager test, if I create a new sprite string, here's the sprite font through the sprite font manager, but if I create a new string, I can do it like so, and then I can update the position as it moves across the screen, which you probably already saw. And the test string works fine. It's a little shaky. I did the nearest neighbor thing, and I also did made the background transparent, so just to make sure there wasn't any pink showing up, but it's still a little weird. And then the last thing is the screen log. So screen log is basically another debug tool. It's just a singleton that has a collection of strings, and then you can add strings to the list, and you have a special way, so you can do it with like the printf formatting, and then when you render the screen log, you loop through all of the messages, which are just strings, get a sprite string for that, set up the sprite string, and render the sprite string. I use a sprite string pool to be a little more efficient, so I'm recycling them as well, with a simple recycling pool. And yeah, once again, that was, oh wait, let me just, like how you would use it is like inside the frigate, you just say screen log add anything that you want. So if I move around with the frigate, the position updates. Yeah. Let me think. I think that's all I have for Sprite system.